On the night before his wedding, Ethan Walker finally understood why his fiancée's bulldog always growled when he leaned in to kiss her, and what he overheard outside her hotel room would set the whole next day on fire. The Shoreline Grand in Santa Monica looked like a dream. White balconies, palm trees swaying, the Pacific breathing in and out just beyond the boardwalk. Valets jogged in polished shoes. Champagne glasses chimed somewhere in the lobby. Ethan climbed out of his Uber in a navy suit jacket, clutching a bouquet he'd picked up from a boutique in Venice. Wildflowers, a little messy, exactly how Sloane Carter liked them. Sloane arrived seconds later with Moose, her stocky English bulldog. Moose planted himself between them, snorting like a tiny freight train. "Hey, big guy," Ethan said, keeping his voice soft. Moose answered with a low growl, the kind that comes from somewhere ancient. Sloane laughed and tugged his leash. "He's protective, you know how he is." "Protective of who?" Ethan joked, but the joke felt thin. Moose had been suspicious from day one, especially when Ethan kissed Sloane. The dog would wedge his blocky head between them as if he were the bouncer of her heart. They rode the elevator up. Sloane leaned into Ethan, perfume like citrus and salt air. "Tomorrow's our day," she whispered. "No more vendors, no more spreadsheets, just us." "Just us," he echoed, trying to quiet the jittery hum in his chest. Her suite was decked out like a Pinterest board sprung to life. Rose petals, floating balloons, a gold script on the wall. Last night before the I do. Ethan swallowed a lump of happiness. He wasn't a grand gesture guy, but tonight he'd planned one anyway. "Give me 10 minutes with Moose," Sloane said. "He needs to stretch." She kissed Ethan quick and disappeared into the room. Moose shot him a final glare over his jowls before trotting in. Ethan hustled back to the lobby, where his groomsmen, Tyler, Rico, and Ben, waited with a Bluetooth speaker, a goofy grin, and a box of cupcakes from a beloved Silver Lake bakery. "Operation Surprise Fiancé," Tyler said, bumping Ethan's shoulder. "You ready?" "Let's make her cry, in, like, the nice way," Ethan said. They rode up together, whispering and snickering, the speaker cued to Sloane's favorite John Mayer song. Ethan's pulse stumbled with each floor. He could already see her rolling her eyes, that half smile, the way she'd duck her head and say, "You big sap." At the door, Ethan lifted his hand to knock. Then he heard it, Sloane's voice. Bright and unguarded, bleeding through the seam of the door. At first he thought she was on FaceTime with her maid of honor. Just pre-wedding butterflies, the usual. "No, he still hates Moose," Sloane said, laughing. "I swear, that dog can sniff out weakness." The guys traded amused looks. Ethan let his knuckles hover, smiling despite himself. "But whatever," she added, voice lowering into something cool. "I'm not marrying him for compatibility. I'm marrying him for stability." The smile died in Ethan's throat. There was a beat of silence on the other end of her call. Sloane filled it, breezy. "He's decent enough, but come on. He's boring, he's married to his calendar, and if he wasn't sitting on all that equity, I wouldn't be here. California law is my prenup. I'll play sweet, then I'm out with a clean split." Ethan's grip loosened. The bouquet slid, stems rasping against his palm. "Of course I love Michael," Sloane went on, almost dreamy. "Always have. After the wedding buzz dies down, we'll figure the rest out." One of the balloons inside squeaked against the ceiling. In the hall, Tyler's grin collapsed. Rico's hand hovered near Ethan's shoulder and then fell. Ethan stepped back from the door like it was hot. The hallway tilted. The Pacific roared in his ears, though the windows didn't open. He saw Moose in his mind, planting himself between them. Gatekeeper, warning flare, or maybe just a dog being a dog. Either way, Moose had told him the truth before Sloane ever did. Tyler whispered. What did she? Ethan set the flowers down on the carpet as carefully as if they were made of glass, then straightened and wiped his palms on his jacket. We're not doing the surprise, he said, voice even, strange in his own mouth. Dude, talk to her, Rico said. Maybe you misheard. I didn't. Ethan's throat burned. He slid his phone from his pocket, stared at the black screen, and saw his own reflection looking back like a stranger in a suit. From inside, Sloane laughed again, careless and light. No, he doesn't suspect a thing. Tomorrow I'll cry on cue. Ethan's chest pinched so hard he had to breathe shallow, just to stay standing. He handed the speaker back to Tyler. Thanks for showing up, he said. I need you with me tomorrow, but tonight, I need air. Ethan! He was already walking past the elevator, past the window wall where the sun bled into the water, down the emergency stairs, 2 at a time. Outside, the ocean smelled like kelp and cold metal. Somewhere on the pier, a busker sang a love song that felt suddenly cruel. He kept moving until the hotel was a white smudge behind him. The ring in his pocket felt heavy as an anchor. He told himself to call it off now, to burn it all down before the vows, before the cake, before his mother flew in from Seattle and cried for a different reason. But he also pictured the ceremony, the money spent, the families in their pressed outfits, the photographer he'd paid a small fortune, the way canceling would brand him in every guest's memory. Above the breakwater, gulls folded and unfolded, effortless against the wind. Ethan stared at the line where sky became water and made a decision, not the one anyone would expect. Tomorrow, he would show up, and he would speak first. He didn't sleep. The red numbers on the hotel clock slid from 1:42 to 3:07 to 4:19, while Ethan sat on the carpet with his back against the bed and his phone in his hands. The second he'd heard Sloane say, "California law is my prenup," his thumb had flicked open voice memos on instinct. 10 stunned minutes later, he had everything he needed. Her laugh, her plan, Michael's name like a bruise. There was a knock, then another. Tyler's voice, low through the wood. "Hey man, open up. Whatever it is, we can fix it." Ethan stared at the door until the shadow under it moved away. He pressed play again. Her words filled the room like cold air. He learned that heartbreak has a sound, and it is not a sob. It's the click of truth locking into place. Cancel the wedding. That was option A. Call families, eat the deposits, end it now. But then he pictured his mother, who'd flown down from Seattle and had cried when she saw the rehearsal dinner napkins because they matched the hydrangeas he'd planted in high school. He pictured Sloane's easy smile for every camera in the room, the way she could turn any story into her story. If he canceled quietly, the narrative would belong to her. He wasn't going to let that happen. Around dawn, Los Angeles yawned awake. Palm fronds shushed. A gull screeched. A runner thumped down Ocean Avenue. Ethan stood, splashed water on his face, and tied his tie with hands that didn't feel like his. He slid the ring box into his jacket pocket anyway, not because he planned to use it, but because he needed to feel its weight. A reminder of what intention ought to mean. In the ballroom, vendors buzzed like bees. Gold chiavari chairs, eucalyptus garland draped over a white wooden arch, a DJ and a snapback testing levels. Ethan walked straight to the booth. Quick favor, he said, voice even. I'll send you an audio file. When I raise my hand like this, hit play, loud. The DJ blinked. Is it a song? It's context. Ethan forced a polite smile. Thanks. Minutes before the processional, his groomsmen lined up. Tyler searched his face. You sure you want to go through with this? I'm sure, Ethan said. He felt strangely calm when the doors opened. Guests turned, phone cameras lifted like a field of flowers. He caught flashes of his dad's cautious nod, his sister's furrowed brow, the photographer's eager shuffle. He smelled the ocean and perfume and the faint metallic bite of nerves. Then Sloane appeared. She looked like a magazine cover. Sleek satin, hair swept back, diamonds at her ears catching the chandelier light. The room sighed. She took her place, eyes shining. Hi, she whispered, leaning in. Ethan nodded once. Hi. The officiant cleared his throat, smile wide. Friends and family, we are gathered. Sorry, Ethan said, lifting a hand. His voice carried, steady as a metronome. Before we begin, I have a surprise for my fiancé. The crowd rippled with delighted ohs. Sloane's smile brightened. She loved a stage. Ethan looked out over the room, at the people who believed in love stories, at the money and time and hope sitting in neat gold rows, and decided that if this was going to end, it would end with the truth standing on its own 2 feet. He turned to the DJ and raised his hand. The ballroom fell into a hush so complete you could hear a bracelet slide against a wrist. The DJ swallowed, tapped the laptop. A voice poured from the speakers, Sloane's, unmistakable, light as champagne and twice as sharp. He's fine, but he's boring. Honestly, if he wasn't sitting on all that equity, I wouldn't be here. California law is my prenup. Gasps cracked the room like glass. Ethan kept his gaze forward, sunglasses still in his pocket. Jaw set, as the next line queued up and the entire future changed in the time it takes to breathe in. The next line hit like a hammer. I'll marry him, wait out a year, file, and walk with half. Community property, baby. A tinkle of laughter. Then I'm with Michael. He's the only one I actually love. No music, no buffer, just Sloane's voice, clean as glass over $1,000 worth of rented speakers. Someone gasped. Someone else said, "Oh my God." Chairs creaked. A champagne flute pinged against the floor. Sloane's bouquet slipped an inch in her hand. That's edited, she blurted, color draining. This is out of context. Ethan didn't move. He felt the mic in his palm like a weight he could finally set down. The recording kept going, merciless. He's sweet, but boring. If he didn't have stock options, I would have left months ago. Michael gets me. Ethan will be fine. Silence, then whispers knifed through the ballroom. The officiant's smile collapsed into a stunned line. Tyler stood halfway out of his chair, eyes begging a signal that never came. Ethan saw his mom's hand fly to her mouth. His dad's jaw tightened the way it did when the Seahawks lost on a blown call. Sloane swayed. For a second he thought she might double down, launch into one of her spin control monologues. Instead, her knees buckled. A bridesmaid lunged, too late. Satin hit carpet. The bouquet rolled, white roses shaking loose like teeth. Ethan put the mic on the lectern as gently as if it might break. He reached into his jacket, pulled out the ring box he'd carried since sunrise, and set it beside the mic. I won't need this, he said quietly. No anger, no theatrics. Just the truth, finally standing up straight. Then he walked down the aisle, past centerpieces and cell phones and 100 faces he didn't want to memorize in this light, and out into the coastal sun. He made it to the service corridor before the sunglasses came out. Not to look cool, to hide. The first tear surprised him. The second didn't. By the time he got to his room, his chest hurt the way a calf cramps, sudden and mean. He sat on the edge of the bed in a tux he'd never wear again and let it come. Not pretty crying, the kind you hear in your bones. People knocked. Tyler, his sister, a planner with whisper-urgent apologies. Ethan? Honey? His mom's voice shredded. He said nothing. Words felt useless. The audio did all the talking. By evening, the group text buzzed like a beehive on fire. Screenshots exploded across Instagram. Somebody in the back row had recorded the entire thing. The clip was already on TikTok with 1 million views and a caption that read, "He played the receipts at the altar." Comments split neatly into sympathy and spectacle. "Run, Ethan, run" trended by morning. He stayed in the room. He didn't eat. He let calls stack up until the voicemail icon was just a red wound. The hotel sent up a tray with a burger and a note that read, "We're so sorry." He lifted the lid, stared at the steam a long time, and put it back down. When he slept, he saw gold chairs and heard laughter that wasn't for him. Day 2. He showered, shaved, tried to answer 3 texts. Failed. Day 3. The florist emailed about the peonies, the venue about refunds, his dad about getting some air. Tyler slid a coffee under the door like contraband and whispered, "You did the brave thing, man." Ethan pressed his forehead to the wood and didn't open it. He'd always built his life on plans, runway, milestones, projections. Now the only numbers in his head were the timestamp on that recording and the view count rising like tide. He pictured bumping into people in Brentwood, Whole Foods pity smiles, a stranger asking for a selfie because grief had made him content. No. He opened his laptop, closed the browser before the feeds could find him. Pulled up a map instead. The blue Pacific lined the screen like a promise. He traced Highway 1 north with his finger until the city blur thinned into towns with names he didn't recognize. Places where nobody cared about a viral clip, and the only thing trending was fog. He booked a month-to-month rental in a small coastal town 3 hours up the coast. 1 bedroom over a quiet coffee shop, the kind with a chalkboard menu and a barista who knows regulars' dog names. He forwarded mail, set an out of office, told his team, "I need air," and told his parents, "I'll call when I land." At dawn, he folded the tux into a donation bag, tossed it in the trunk of a car that didn't turn heads, and drove until the billboards went away. The freeway unspooled. The ocean kept pace on his left like a big, patient animal. With every mile, the white noise in his chest lowered a click. He wasn't running, he told himself. He was choosing. Choosing quiet over spectacle. Choosing to rebuild something, if not his faith in love, then at least his appetite. Past a bend, the town appeared. Weathered shingles, a diner with a neon open that buzzed like a friendly bug. Gulls working the air above a pier. He turned onto Main Street. Parked by the curb, sat there, engine ticking, hands still on the wheel. He had no idea that, within the hour, a stranger would splash mud up his jeans, hand him a towel, and knock the last jagged piece of his old life loose. The next line hit like a hammer. "I'll marry him, wait out a year, file, and walk with half. Community property, baby." A tinkle of laughter. "Then I'm with Michael. He's the only one I actually love." No music, no buffer, just Sloane's voice, clean as glass over $1,000 worth of rented speakers. Someone gasped. Someone else said, "Oh my God." Chairs creaked. A champagne flute pinged against the floor. Sloane's bouquet slipped an inch in her hand. That's edited, she blurted, color draining. This is out of context. Ethan didn't move. He felt the mic in his palm like a weight he could finally set down. The recording kept going, merciless. He's sweet, but boring. If he didn't have stock options, I would have left months ago. Michael gets me. Ethan will be fine. Silence, then whispers knifed through the ballroom. The officiant's smile collapsed into a stunned line. Tyler stood halfway out of his chair, eyes begging a signal that never came. Ethan saw his mom's hand fly to her mouth, his dad's jaw tighten the way it did when the Seahawks lost on a blown call. Sloane swayed. For a second he thought she might double down, launch into one of her spin control monologues. Instead, her knees buckled. A bridesmaid lunged, too late. Satin hit carpet. The bouquet rolled, white roses shaking loose like teeth. Ethan put the mic on the lectern as gently as if it might break. He reached into his jacket, pulled out the ring box he'd carried since sunrise, and set it beside the mic. "I won't need this," he said quietly. "No anger, no theatrics. Just the truth, finally standing up straight." Then he walked down the aisle, past centerpieces and cell phones and 100 faces he didn't want to memorize in this light, and out into the coastal sun. He made it to the service corridor before the sunglasses came out. Not to look cool, to hide. The first tear surprised him. The second didn't. By the time he got to his room, his chest hurt the way a calf cramps, sudden and mean. He sat on the edge of the bed in a tux he'd never wear again and let it come. Not pretty crying, the kind you hear in your bones. People knocked. Tyler, his sister, a planner with whisper-urgent apologies. "Ethan? Honey?" His mom's voice shredded. He said nothing. Words felt useless. The audio did all the talking. By evening, the group text buzzed like a beehive on fire. Screenshots exploded across Instagram. Somebody in the back row had recorded the entire thing. The clip was already on TikTok with 1 million views and a caption that read, "He played the receipts at the altar." Comments split neatly into sympathy and spectacle. "Run, Ethan, run" trended by morning. He stayed in the room. He didn't eat. He let calls stack up until the voicemail icon was just a red wound. The hotel sent up a tray with a burger and a note that read, "We're so sorry." He lifted the lid, stared at the steam a long time, and put it back down. When he slept, he saw gold chairs and heard laughter that wasn't for him. Day 2. He showered, shaved, tried to answer 3 texts. Failed. Day 3. The florist emailed about the peonies. The venue about refunds. His dad about getting some air. Tyler slid a coffee under the door like contraband and whispered, "You did the brave thing, man." Ethan pressed his forehead to the wood and didn't open it. He'd always built his life on plans, runway, milestones, projections. Now the only numbers in his head were the timestamp on that recording and the view count rising like tide. He pictured bumping into people in Brentwood, Whole Foods pity smiles, a stranger asking for a selfie because grief had made him content. No. He opened his laptop, closed the browser before the feeds could find him. Pulled up a map instead. The blue Pacific lined the screen like a promise. He traced Highway 1 north with his finger until the city blur thinned into towns with names he didn't recognize. Places where nobody cared about a viral clip, and the only thing trending was fog. He booked a month-to-month rental in a small coastal town 3 hours up the coast. 1 bedroom over a quiet coffee shop, the kind with a chalkboard menu and a barista who knows regulars' dog names. He forwarded mail, set an out of office, told his team, "I need air," and told his parents, I'll call when I land. At dawn, he folded the tux into a donation bag, tossed it in the trunk of a car that didn't turn heads, and drove until the billboards went away. The freeway unspooled. The ocean kept pace on his left like a big, patient animal. With every mile, the white noise in his chest lowered a click. He wasn't running, he told himself. He was choosing. Choosing quiet over spectacle. Choosing to rebuild something, if not his faith in love, then at least his appetite. Past a bend, the town appeared. Weathered shingles, a diner with a neon open that buzzed like a friendly bug. Gulls working the air above a pier. He turned onto Main Street. Parked by the curb, sat there, engine ticking, hands still on the wheel. He had no idea that, within the hour, a stranger would splash mud up his jeans, hand him a towel, and knock the last jagged piece of his old life loose. The plan was small. A booth, a burger, and conversation that didn't require armor. Ethan even washed the old Corolla at the self-serve bay, though the clear coat was long past saving. He pulled up outside Caroline's duplex right on time. She peered through the blinds, then opened the door with Emma at her shoulder. Emma smiled. Caroline's smile thinned when she saw the car. "This is cozy," she said, sliding into the back like the seat might stain her. "It runs," Ethan said, keeping it light. Harbor Diner glowed warm against the fog. Blue stools, a chalkboard promising homemade pie, no regrets. The kind of place where the waitress calls everyone honey without irony. They slid into a corner booth by the window. The laminated menus stuck a little at the edges. "God, I love this vibe," Emma said, looking around. Caroline set her phone on the table, screen up. "It's cute." April, the waitress, arrived with waters. "What can I get you folks?" Ethan didn't have to look. "Patty melt, no onions, and just water, thanks." Emma glanced at him, then handed back her menu. "Grilled chicken salad. Water's great." Caroline leaned back, considering the specials board like a judge. "I'll do the surf and turf. Caesar salad to start." "Truffle fries. Do you have truffle fries?" "No? Regular is fine. And a glass of your nicest Cabernet." She looked at April. "Actually, make it two." April scribbled, unbothered. "You got it, sweetie." Ethan did quick math he pretended he wasn't doing. Patty melt, salad, surf and turf, 2 wines. He'd brought cash because the small bank here took 2 days to clear his city account. He thought it would cover a diner night. He hadn't budgeted for Napa in a stemless glass. Conversation tried to take shape. Emma asked about the after-school program. Caroline answered while checking notifications. Ethan told a soft joke about the town Facebook group's obsession with raccoons. Emma laughed. Caroline didn't look up. When the food came, Caroline took pictures of her plate and added filters while the steak cooled. Ethan ate slowly, buying time and praying his math was wrong. When April dropped the black leather check presenter, his stomach sank. He breathed out anyway, added a tip that wouldn't embarrass him, and felt the gap open between the cash he had and the number in ink, 20-something bucks short. He leaned toward Caroline, low voice. "Hey, this is awkward. I misjudged a bit. Could you spot me the difference?" "I'll Venmo you tonight." Her head snapped up. "You brought us out and you can't afford it?" Emma's eyes flashed. "Caroline." "I'm just saying," Caroline said, louder now. "That's tacky." April pretended to refill waters. Heat climbed Ethan's neck. "I'm not asking you to pay for everything." "No kidding." She pushed her chair back a fraction. "I don't carry cash." Emma's handbag was already open. She slid a folded 20 across the seat under the lip of the table, her voice a hush. Take it. Pretend it came from me for extra truffle you didn't get. Please. Ethan stared at the bill like it might explode. Pride throbbed. He swallowed it. Thank you, he said, only to Emma. He tucked it into the presenter, closed it, and set it where April could grab it without having to see his face. They walked out into the milky coastal dusk, each of them performing a different version of fine. Caroline checked her reflection in the window glass. Emma held the door for a couple in hoodies. Ethan held the weight in his chest with both hands. The Corolla coughed once on the first turn, then caught. He pulled away from the curb, silence settling heavy. At the long light by the drawbridge, a white BMW M4 rolled up in the next lane, bass low and expensive. The driver, mid-30s, mirrored aviators, wristwatch that could pay someone's rent, looked across and smiled like he was in a commercial. He lowered his window. Hey there, he called, past Ethan to the back seat. Didn't mean to stare. You just brightened up the whole lane. Caroline straightened, surprise blooming into a grin. Hi. Ethan kept his eyes on the red light. I'm Mark, the guy said, like his name came with a trademark. You local? Kind of, Caroline said, already unclicking her seatbelt. Emma touched her arm. We're literally in the middle of the road. It's fine, Caroline said, laughing, and leaned across the gap between cars to trade phones. Numbers moved like water. The light turned green. Someone honked behind them. Ethan drove. No one spoke for the next 2 blocks. He dropped them at Caroline's curb. Emma lingered with her hand on the door. Thank you for dinner, she said, meaning more than those words. Caroline had already texted, face lit by a new thread. Yeah, Ethan said, voice even. You're welcome. He watched them go up the walk. The porch light blinked on. Somewhere, a television laughed. On the way home, the radio didn't work, which felt appropriate. He could still taste the Cabernet he didn't drink and the shame he did. He told himself it was a bad date. Not a verdict. He told himself people have off nights. He didn't tell himself what he knew in his gut. The smallest flags are the ones that trip you. Half a mile from his place, the BMW streaked past in the opposite lane, exhaust popping like applause. He didn't look over. He didn't have to. Whatever this was, it had just tilted. And the ground beneath him, finally steady, had a tremor again. Ethan and Caroline still texted, not constantly. She answered in bursts between selfies and busy RN, but enough to keep the door ajar. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was stubborn hope. He kept telling himself people have off days. He told himself to see the best in her. Emma checked in too, sending him photos from the youth center. Kid art, a busted foosball table, a triumphant shot of a 7th grader holding up an improved report card. Her messages made him breathe easier, like opening a window in a room you'd forgotten was stuffy. One bright Saturday, Caroline invited him over. Swing by, she texted, pinning her location. Just hanging. Emma's here. Her duplex smelled like vanilla candles and curling iron heat. Netflix hummed on mute. Emma sat cross-legged on the rug, folding laundry into impossibly neat stacks. Caroline scrolled her phone on the couch, nails pink and perfect, legs tucked just so. Hey, Ethan said, offering a paper bag of bakery cookies he'd spent too long choosing. Cute, Caroline said without looking up, already posting a story captioned Lazy Day. They made small talk. Emma asked about his week. He asked about the after-school program's field trip. Caroline chimed in when something involved a camera. He didn't plan to say it. The question slipped out like a truth that had been waiting for courage. "Caroline," he said, steadying his voice, "if I ever asked you to marry me someday, would you even consider it?" Her laugh came out sharp and surprised, then louder when she saw he was serious. "Marry you?" She sat forward. "Ethan, be for real." Emma's hands froze over a t-shirt. Caroline gestured around the room, then at him, his thrifted flannel, the worn sneakers he'd cleaned with a toothbrush. "You don't even have a decent car. You just asked my friend to cover dinner the other night. I can't build a life on vibes." Emma set the shirt down. "Caroline." "What?" Caroline snapped. "We're adults. Marriage isn't a charity. I'm not trying to struggle." The words landed like pebbles that somehow felt like bricks. Ethan stared at the muted TV for a beat, let the sting burn clean. "Thanks for the honesty," he said quietly. Emma moved to the edge of the couch, voice gentle but firm. "You don't have to say it that way." Caroline rolled her eyes, then stood, smoothing her hair. "Honestly, I'm doing him a favor." A car horn chirped outside, 2 short beeps like a summons. Caroline's face lit up. "That's Mark." Emma's jaw tightened. "From the intersection." "Don't be judgy," Caroline sang, flouncing to the window. The white BMW idled at the curb, exhaust curling like a signature. The door opened and Mark emerged with shopping bags hanging from both wrists, designer logos flashing like badges. He strolled in as if the place belonged to him. "There she is," he said, kissing the air near Caroline's cheek, then clocking Ethan with a slow smile. "Oh, you must be the friend." "Ethan," Ethan said. "Right." Mark lifted the bags. "Got you some things," he told Caroline, then dumped them on the coffee table. A perfume in a glass coffin, heels that could puncture a tire, a dress with a price tag that felt like a flex. Caroline squealed, rifling through tissue paper. "You're insane." In the best way. Mark turned back to Ethan, eyes skimming him like a Yelp review. "So what do you do, man?" "Work odd jobs, freelance web fixes. I help at the youth center." "Ah." Mark's grin thinned. "Noble. Doesn't pay, though." Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. Emma stood now, shoulders squared. "You don't know anything about him?" Mark laughed, unbothered. "Relax. I'm just saying some of us play varsity." "Some of us confuse money with character," Emma said, level as a ruler. Caroline slid an arm through Mark's. "We're going. Rooftop bar in Sausalito. Don't wait up." She wiggled her fingers at Ethan like shooing a stray cat. "Good luck with your little gigs." They swept out in a cloud of fragrance and car keys, the door clicking shut like a verdict. Silence leaked back into the room. Emma exhaled, the sound full of apology she didn't owe. "I'm sorry," she said. "That was brutal." "It's okay," Ethan said, even if it wasn't. He stared at the abandoned Netflix menu and tried to slow his pulse. "I asked a real question. I got a real answer." Emma moved closer, perching on the arm of the couch. "Her answer isn't the only one." He looked up. The room shifted focus. Laundry stacks, crooked art print, a plant bravely surviving on the sill, and then her, steady and kind in a world that loved surfaces. "Do you think someone could actually want this life with me?" he asked, voice quieter than he meant. "I don't think," Emma said. "I know." She held his gaze. "You're decent, Ethan. You show up. It's not glamorous, but it's real." His throat tightened. "Would you?" Color rose in her cheeks, but she didn't look away. "If the right man asked me for a real life built on real things," she said, "yeah, I would." Something locker clicked open inside him. the part that had been latching shut since that hotel hallway months ago. He didn't move. Neither did she. The moment sat between them, small and enormous. Outside, a siren Dopplered past and faded. Inside, the TV's screensaver drifted across space, stars moving in slow, certain arcs. Emma slid off the arm and stood. "Text me when you get home?" she asked. Even heroes of humility shouldn't drive while upset. He smiled, a real one this time. Deal. On his way out, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Dinner tonight? Private room? I have an idea that could change things." The sender ID populated a second later. Jack. Ethan stared at the name, past and present colliding like headlights in a fog. He had no idea that saying yes would set off the chain reaction that turned his quiet second life into a reckoning and a reveal no one in this town saw coming. The text from Jack sat on Ethan's screen like a flare in the dark. "Dinner tonight? Private room. I have an idea that could change things." He stared at it long enough for the bubbles to fade, then typed, "Where?" An address came back. An upstairs room in a quiet Italian spot in North Beach. The kind of place with velvet curtains and a piano that mostly just looks good. Ethan almost didn't go. He almost let the message sink to the bottom of his phone with all the other invitations he'd ignored. But at 7:58 p.m., he pushed through a beaded partition into a narrow room washed in lamplight. Jack stood when he saw him. Same Jack as always. Tie loosened, hair that never quite cooperated, eyes that clock everything. "You look alive," Jack said, pulling him into a hug. "I'm trying it on," Ethan said, managing a smile. They sat. A server ghosted in, poured water, vanished. For a few minutes, they just listened to Forks and Sinatra from below. Jack broke first. "I gave you space," he said. "But the board, your board, has been asking when you're stepping back into your name. And I've been asking when you're stepping back into yourself." Ethan picked at the label on his bottle. "I wasn't hiding from the company. I was hiding from the noise." "I know." Jack interlaced his fingers. "But quiet turned into exile. You let a bad story define you. Jilted groom, walking meme. That ends when you say it ends." "I don't want headlines," Ethan said. "I want a life that doesn't depend on them." "Great," Jack said. "Then choose the audience. Rewrite the story in a room you control." Ethan looked up. "What are you proposing?" "A dinner," Jack said. "Private, elegant, but not flashy. We'll call it a community fundraiser. Benefit for the youth center you've been helping. It gives the night a spine. Invite list is small and intentional." Ethan waited. "Her," Jack said. "Emma. And if she invites Caroline, fine. Let reality test itself with the volume turned down." Ethan leaned back. "You want me to reveal everything?" "I want you to stop pretending you're less than you are just to feel safe," Jack said, gentler now. "The right people don't need you small, and the wrong ones won't pass a quiet integrity check anyway." Ethan stared at the candle between them, its wick a bright pin of decision. "I won't humiliate anyone," he said. "No stunts, no revenge theater." "Agreed," Jack said. "No playlists, no microphones, no gotchas. Just truth in a well-lit room." The server set down pasta neither of them remembered ordering. Jack waited while Ethan took a bite he didn't taste. "Two more things," Jack said. "Security, because cameras find you even when you don't want them. And logistics, because if this goes right, you'll want your world to meet hers without friction." Ethan nodded slowly. "Where?" "I've got a ballroom on hold at a waterfront hotel in the city. Friday. Plated dinner, soft jazz, a donation box that doesn't scream. Friday's fast. Fast is clean, Jack said. Lingering invites gossip. We'll keep it simple. You ask Emma to dinner. I make sure the room looks like Grace. Ethan pictured Emma's steady eyes, the way she'd said, "Yeah, I would," without flinching. "And if Caroline shows?" he asked. "Then she shows," Jack said. "You won't have to say a word. People reveal themselves." Silence stretched, comfortable this time. Downstairs, someone clapped for the end of a song. Ethan pulled out his phone, thumb hovering. "What about the company?" he asked. "If I step back in." "Then we do it on your terms," Jack said. "Slow, quiet. You don't owe the world a parade. You owe yourself peace." Ethan typed, "Dinner Friday? I want to take you somewhere that matters." He paused, then added, "It's for the kids at the center. Dress nice if you feel like it. No pressure." He hit send. 3 dots blinked. "Would love to," Emma wrote. "Tell me time and place, and I'll try not to cry if it's fancy." Ethan smiled into his glass. "She said yes." "Of course she did," Jack said. "She's been saying yes to the hard parts all along." Ethan's phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from Caroline. "Heard you're planning something Friday. Need a +1?" He frowned. He hadn't told her anything. "Info moves," Jack said, reading his face. "You good with that?" "I won't curate the test," Ethan said. "If she comes, she comes." They split the check out of habit, then stood in the narrow hall while cold air crept up the stairwell. Jack squeezed his shoulder. "One last thing. You don't have to show up in armor to be strong, but if you want the convoy, I'll have it polished." Ethan laughed despite himself. "No parade," he said. "But maybe don't hide the truth on the way in." Jack's grin tilted. "Got it." On the sidewalk, the city breathed around them, streetcar bells, a bus sighing to a stop, a couple arguing softly over which gelato to share. Ethan looked up at the slice of fog catching the streetlights and felt something shift, a plate settling after a quake. Friday would be a room he chose. No mics, no spectacle, just a table, a cause, and the simple courage of not pretending anymore. He texted Emma the details. He put his phone in his pocket. And for the first time in a long time, he walked toward a future he wasn't bracing against. He didn't notice the white BMW sliding past at the corner, its driver glancing over with a smirk before disappearing into the night. Nor did he see the set of eyes in a rideshare across the street, clock his face, then his name, then fire off a message that would bring an uninvited guest to the very place he hoped would stay small. The room would be well lit. The night would be quiet. Until it wasn't. Friday didn't tiptoe in. It kicked the door. Emma stood in front of her bathroom mirror with a curling iron cooling on the counter, and that peach dress spread across the bed like a sunrise she wasn't sure she deserved to wear. She'd tried on the denim jacket, then a cardigan, then nothing over it at all. Her phone buzzed. "Ethan, on my way, black sedan. Don't freak out." She blew out a breath, laughed at herself, and slipped into the dress. Lip balm, not lipstick, small gold hoops. The last thing she saw before she turned off the light was the sticky note on the frame. Led with kindness. E. Outside, the Mission evening hummed. Kids on scooters, a guy selling a lote, a muni bus sighing at the corner. Then a black SUV eased to the curb, the kind you only see outside arenas and courthouses. A driver in a suit stepped out and opened the rear door like this was normal. "Ms. Reed?" he asked, gentle. Emma's brain briefly left her body. Yeah, that's me. Ethan slid out from the other side. Not the flannel and sneakers Ethan she knew from coffee runs. A navy suit, clean lines, a tie the color of the bay at dusk. Same eyes, same careful smile. You look… Wow, he said, then shook his head at himself. Sorry. Words hail. She grinned, nerves diffusing. You clean up okay? He glanced at the SUV, then back at her. I didn't want to hide tonight, but I promised, no circus, just fewer lift rides. Okay, she said, because it felt like the right word. She took his arm and let the driver close them into soft leather and quiet. They rolled up Valencia, cut over to South Van Ness, and hit the Embarcadero as the ferry building clock blinked into evening. The bay threw back little shards of light. Emma traced a fingertip on the fogged window and finally asked, Is this fundraiser fancy, or there's a donation jar by the cupcakes fancy? Somewhere in between, Ethan said. It's for the Harbor House Youth Initiative. Jack set most of it up. You've met his chaos. His chaos is organized, she said, which is terrifying. He laughed, a sound she hadn't heard much but wanted more of. Thanks for coming. I've been to less interesting Friday nights, she said. Like laundry. Laundry has virtues. He paused. I don't want you to feel out of place. I'm with you, she said simply. That's the place. Across town, Caroline balanced on the edge of her bed, blinking false lashes into cooperation. The white BMW key fob twirled on her finger. So this thing's at a hotel? She asked, angling a mirror at her neckline. Mark checked his phone. A message sat pinned up top. Ops. Call time 7:30, black tie, discretion. He flipped it face down. Yeah, big donors probably. Don't worry, you'll blend. I don't blend, she said. I stand out. He slid a gold chain under his collar. Even better. Caroline snapped a photo, added a caption she'd later delete, and texted Emma. What are you wearing? I need to make sure we don't clash. No reply. Rude, she muttered, and followed Mark out. The hotel rose like glass and light at the edge of the water, a few blocks from the exploratorium. Valets in dark coats, heaters glowing on the front walk. The scent of the bay tucked into the evening air. Inside, the lobby held its breath. Marble, soft jazz, an art wall that probably had a plaque with words like curated and local maker. Mr. Hale, the front desk attendant said as they crossed. Not loud, not performative, just a small nod that said we see you. Emma caught it, tucked it away with everything else. Good evening, Ethan replied, that same careful smile. He didn't speed up, didn't slow down. His hand found the small of Emma's back, a question mark that felt like a promise. Jack met them at the entrance to a private ballroom, tie straight for once. Headset he pretended wasn't there. You clean up nice, he said to Emma, then to Ethan, sotto voce. Room's warm, donors are happy, security's soft. Soft? Emma asked. Like invisible, Jack clarified. It's a hospitality word. I learned it this week. A small sign by the door read, Harbor House Benefit Dinner, with a QR code and a simple line. Tonight we fund tutors and guitars and field trips. Thank you. Inside, the room was all honeyed light and round tables dressed in white. No step and repeat, no press risers. A trio played standards in the corner. Place cards sat in simple script. At each setting, a note. 1 hour a week changes a life. Emma exhaled. It wasn't flashy. It was human. Ethan made introductions that mattered. The director of Harbor House who wore Converse with her suit. A high school senior who talked about finishing a robotics project in a garage. a retired cop who coached soccer on weekends. The food smelled like roasted garlic and lemon. The clink of glassware sounded like possibility. Emma listened, asked questions, laughed at a kid's joke about 3D printers. She caught Ethan watching her once, like he was storing the picture for a day he might need it. Half an hour in, the doors at the back opened. Caroline stepped through on Mark's arm, a red dress that belonged on a step and repeat that didn't exist here. She clocked the room, then zeroed in on Emma. Her smile didn't make it to her eyes. "Well," she said under her breath, "look who learned how to RSVP." Mark's hand tightened on her elbow. "We keep it cool," he murmured. They hadn't taken 3 steps before a man in a black suit appeared at Mark's shoulder. "Evening," the man said in a tone that suggested they'd met before. His gaze flicked to Caroline, then past her. Across the room, Jack touched his headset. "Heads up," he murmured to no one Emma could see. Ethan and Emma were mid-conversation with the Harbor House director when Mark broke from Caroline and approached. Up close, the chain at his collar looked less expensive than it wanted to be, but his posture said he was used to slipping into rooms he hadn't been invited to. "Evening, sir," Mark said, low, respectful, not for show. Emma felt Ethan still beside her. Caroline, a few paces behind, blinked. "Sir?" she repeated, confusion catching on something harder. "What?" Mark's eyes flicked, waiting. The trio in the corner shifted into a song everyone knows from 100 wedding videos. Conversation dimmed 2 degrees. Ethan set his water glass down, steady. He didn't look at Caroline. He looked at Emma. "Ready?" he asked, just to her. "For what?" Emma asked, heart tapping against her ribs. He offered his arm, small and polite. "For the part where the room hears the same story you already know." Caroline's mouth opened on a question she wasn't going to like the answer to. Jack stepped into the soft space between tables, nodding at the band to cut the volume a hair. And at the far service door, unseen by most, a young woman in a hotel apron paused with a bus tub, eyes going wide at a profile she hadn't expected to see again. The ballroom held its breath. The next sentence would change who was standing where when the night ended. The room held its breath. Ethan stepped toward the mic, not grand, just steady, and the trio dimmed to a hush. Mark stopped 2 paces short, hands at his sides like a valet waiting on instructions. "Good evening," Ethan said, voice even. "I'm Ethan Hale. If you've heard of the Hale Family Foundation, tonight you're meeting the boring part of it, me." A low ripple of recognition. A couple donors sat up straighter. The Harbor House director's smile widened like a secret confirmed. Emma felt the floor tilt. Not because she hadn't suspected, he'd warned her he wouldn't hide tonight, but because the way he said it wasn't a flex. It was a statement of fact, followed by a warm glance at her, like, "See? Same guy, different light." Across the room, Caroline's lips parted. "Hale?" she mouthed to Mark. Mark didn't look at her. "Sir," he said under his breath, more to habit than anything. Ethan continued. "Most of you know Harbor House tutors kids who don't care that you were late to a board meeting as long as you show up for algebra. They teach drums in a borrowed classroom and build robots out of donated kits. They're small. They're mighty. And tonight we get to push wind into their sails." He paused. "We'll start with a short video. Marcus?" Marcus apparently, tapped his wrist mic. The screens came alive with clips. A middle schooler printing a plastic gear, a girl nailing a snare pattern, a field trip to the Cal Academy. Laughter rose at a shot of Jack getting pegged with a soccer ball and taking a dramatic fall to the grass. When the lights came back, Ethan said, "The foundation will match every dollar tonight up to $500,000. And if anyone pledges time instead of money, we'll match that by paying for the supplies that make your hour count." Applause cracked, warm and real. The senior Emma met earlier wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. The director pressed her lips together to keep them from wobbling. Caroline blinked hard, calculating at the speed of whiplash. $500,000? Matching? She grabbed Marcus's sleeve. "Wait," she hissed. "You work for him?" Marcus's gaze stayed professional. "Ma'am, please enjoy the program." She let go, tugging at the bracelet on her wrist, like it could rewind last winter, last month, last hour. Her stare found Emma, then the way Ethan looked at Emma. A new kind of heat crawled up her neck. Ethan set the mic back in its stand. "I don't like long speeches," he said. "I like long commitments. Thank you for being here." He stepped away and let the band breathe a little life back into the air. Jack intercepted, clapped him on the shoulder and whispered, "Smooth. Also, you're trending inside this room." "Tragic," Ethan muttered, and turned, straight into Emma's smile. "So," she said, eyes bright. "Foundation, huh?" "Very undercover," he said. "You could have warned me." I texted, "Don't freak out." "That's not a warning," she said, laughing. "That's a dare." He leaned in, voice low. "You okay?" Emma took in the simple place cards, the kid in the thrifted blazer, the director in Converse, and the man in the suit who'd introduced himself by the work, not the wealth. "I'm more than okay." She felt someone watching. She turned. At the far service door, the young woman in the apron stood very still, a bus tub balanced on her hip. Her face had the washed-out look of someone who'd been running on too little sleep and too much coffee. When Ethan's eyes happened to slide that way, she flinched and disappeared behind the door like she'd touched a hot stove. "Did you see?" Emma started. "See what?" Ethan asked. "Nothing," she said, filing it under weird. They made their way through a drift of handshakes and thank yous. A retired cop told Ethan that Harbor House kept his grandkid out of trouble. Ethan asked for the kid's favorite subject and got an invitation to a Saturday game. A woman in a Navy sheath mentioned a potential lease. Ethan said, "Email Jack." And Jack, somewhere, heard his name and pointed at his own chest like me, and then thumbs up to cross the room. Then Caroline inserted herself, perfume arriving first. "Ethan," she said brightly, laying a hand on his forearm like she owned the rights. "What a surprise. If I'd known." "You didn't," Ethan said, gently removing her hand. Her smile wobbled. I would have dressed differently." She glanced down at the red dress that had silent sirens attached. "This is what you're doing. It's impressive." "It's necessary," he said. He nodded toward the student MC setting up at the mic. "Excuse me." Caroline pivoted to Emma, voice sugar at the top and salt underneath. "You must be thrilled." Emma tilted her head. "I am." "Not everyone can, keep up," Caroline said. Emma's smile went kind. "Good thing I don't run for sport." Then she stepped away without waiting for whatever came next. On stage, the student MC, cheeks flushed, hair in a puff, cleared her throat. Hi, I'm Malia. Harbor House helped me pass physics. They also helped me not give up on myself when it felt easier." She pointed down at Ethan. "That guy funded our summer program before he ever told us his last name. So, thanks." The room melted a little. Emma felt something in her chest loosen and settle, like furniture finding its perfect place. Near the service corridor, a tray clattered. The apron-clad woman had dropped a handful of water glasses. Pieces glittered on the carpet like ice. A manager crouched to help. "You okay, Lauren?" he asked, voice low. She nodded too fast. Eyes fixed on the stage. Not on the student. Not on the director. On Ethan. Emma caught the name like a paper slip in a breeze. Lauren. The syllables skittered against a memory she didn't own. Next to her, Ethan's posture went infinitesimally rigid, the way a person braces for a wave only he can see. "Everything all right?" Emma asked, almost whispering. Ethan's gaze stayed on Malia at the mic. "Yeah," he said. "Let's listen." But when the applause crested again, his eyes slid, unguarded, toward the service door where a shadow waited in the seam. And whatever history lived there had just walked back into the room. If the gala had been a tide lifting everyone, the sight of the woman in the apron was an undertow only Ethan felt. He kept his smile on the student at the mic until the applause covered his exit, then brushed Emma's hand. "1 minute," he murmured. "Do you want me to?" "Stay. Enjoy this, please." She watched him slip along the wall toward the service corridor. Jack appeared, as if conjured by concern. "You good?" "Who's the server by the door?" Emma asked. Jack glanced. "New temp staff. Why?" Emma exhaled. She looked at Ethan like she knew him. Jack's jaw set in a way that said, "Then she does." "I'll keep an eye out," he said, and drifted after Ethan at a distance that could pass as coincidence. Behind the double doors, the air dropped 10 degrees and smelled like coffee, lemons, and steam. Dishwashers hummed. A radio low in the kitchen played Springsteen from someone's phone. The young woman stood by a rack of clean glasses, fingers white-knuckled around a towel. "Lauren," Ethan said. She winced at her own name. Up close, she was thinner than he remembered, hair scraped back, the kind of tired that bones wear. "I didn't know you'd be here," she whispered. "It's my event. I mean, like that. Hale Foundation." A hollow laugh. "Of course it is." They stood with a cart between them. There had been a time when there was no such space. "I heard the speech," Lauren said, eyes shining with unshed things. "You sound different." "I am." "I was awful," she blurted, and everything she'd dammed up slipped in one rush. "I was stupid and greedy and scared. I thought life was a game I had to win before it crushed me. I let people tell me who to be. I hurt you. I hurt myself. I'm sorry, Ethan." The words struck, not like a slap, but like rain on a burnt field. Too late to save what was, early enough to grow something else. Just not here. "I don't hate you," he said. It surprised them both. "I did, for a long time. Now I don't." Lauren nodded too fast, like she'd rehearsed accepting less than forgiveness. "I'm not here to ask for anything. I swear. I got the job through an agency. I didn't know you'd... I would have called out if I'd known." "What do you need?" Ethan asked, simple. Her mouth trembled. "A second chance somewhere no one knows my worst moment. That's all." He took a card from his wallet and wrote a name on the back. "Call this number. She runs workforce programs for the foundation. No promises, no favoritism, just a door you can knock on." Lauren held the card as if it were heat. "Thank you," she swallowed. "And her? The woman with you. She looked at you like... you." "Emma," he said, and the name itself softened him. "She is nothing like the past." Lauren's smile was small and real. "Good." She stepped back, put the towel on her shoulder, and blinked hard. "I'll clear the empties by the fireplace. Then I'm gone." "Take care of yourself, Lauren." "You too," she said. and disappeared into steam and silver. Ethan leaned a shoulder against the wall for one breath. The man who had once wanted revenge now wanted distance and quiet, and he was oddly proud of that. When he returned, Emma was at the pledge table helping an 8th grader write his name clearly so the certificate would be spelled right. She looked up and read his face the way she always did. Not by the smile, by the eyes. "You okay?" "I am." He let the truth sit between them. "I ran into a chapter I closed. I didn't tear the page out, I just closed it." Emma's answering smile was all the answer he needed. "Good." From the bar, Caroline watched like a hawk denied entry to a window. Marcus stood near enough to intercept. She angled around him anyway. "Ethan," she sang, "you never introduced us to all your surprises." "Enjoying the night?" he asked, calm. "It's beautiful," she said. Harbor House, right? I was thinking I could volunteer. Kids love me." "Volunteers go through training and background checks," Emma said, pleasant as a porch light that still means no soliciting. Caroline's mouth pinched. Just a hair. "Of course." On stage, the director announced totals. "With the Hale Foundation match, we raised $842,000 tonight." The ballroom burst. Confetti cannons puffed gold paper. The band swung into something bright. Emma clapped until her palms stung, and then realized Ethan wasn't looking at the number. He was looking at the kids' faces. After, coats appeared, cheeks were kissed, and donors floated out into the cold with warm pockets. In the coat room hallway, Emma tugged on her wrap and looked up at Ethan. "You disappeared for a reason and came back lighter. I'm not going to ask for details you don't want to give." "I want to give," he said. "Just not here. Not over half-heard sentences and bad acoustics. Coffee tomorrow?" "Dinner Saturday," he countered, pulse flicking. "Let me cook." "You cook?" "I own a stove," he deadpanned, "and I know a guy with a fire extinguisher." She laughed, then softened. "Saturday it is." As the elevator doors slid closed on them, Ethan texted Jack under his breath. "Private room, Saturday, 7 p.m., low-key but beautiful. 2 extra seats. Send formal invites. Names, Caroline West, Marcus Cole." He slid the phone away and looked at Emma. He wasn't planning a spectacle. He was planning clarity. And if the past insisted on watching, it would see him choose his future in the open. The envelope hit 2 mailboxes that morning and set 2 very different hearts racing. Emma's was a small cream card, handwritten in ink that bled a little at the edges. "Saturday, 7 p.m. Let me cook for you. E." Simple, warm, the kind of note you keep between pages of a book. Caroline's was thick, embossed, and hand-delivered by a concierge in a navy blazer. "Private dinner, Bayshore Hotel, Harbor Room, Saturday 7 p.m. RSVP required." The Hale crest glinted in the corner. Caroline held it like a mirror and smiled at her own reflection. "Babe," she sang, waving it at Marcus. "Guess who wants us at his table?" Marcus squinted. "Private room? Sounds curated." "It sounds exclusive," she corrected, already pulling dresses from her closet. "We'll show them how we belong." Across town, Ethan stood in a quiet test kitchen tucked behind the harbor room, sleeves rolled and a dish towel over his shoulder. He'd meant it when he told Emma he'd cook. He wasn't trying to impress her with foie gras and fireworks. He was making the food he missed when life got noisy. Roast chicken with lemon and thyme, charred broccolini, a skillet cornbread that would arrive in the pan, bubbling and golden. He whisked a vinaigrette in a mason jar and tasted it off his knuckle. Bright. Honest. "You sure you want both of them here?" Jack asked, leaning on the door jamb with a clipboard. "I'm sure I want no shadows," Ethan said. If we're building something real, I don't want to edit out parts of my life. Jack nodded. Security's discreet. Staff is briefed. You're the cook tonight, not the owner. Ethan smiled. I am the guy with the towel. At a community college across town, Lauren sat in a small office with a job counselor whose earrings were shaped like tiny suns. The counselor slid a brochure across the desk. Transitional placements, paid training, mentorship. You'll start in housekeeping, but we pair you with a coach. You'll have to show up and do the work. We'll do the rest with you, not for you. Lauren clutched the pen like a promise. I want to earn my way, she said. She didn't know that Ethan had picked up a tray tonight in a room she'd once vacuumed for tips. In a city this big, lives still folded around each other. At 6:50, Emma stepped out of the elevator and into the harbor room's antechamber. Soft jazz drifted from a Bluetooth speaker. The private dining space had been transformed with succulents and candles instead of centerpieces. A long wooden table set for 4. Linen napkins tucked into napkin rings made of twine. It looked like money spent on restraint. Ethan came from the kitchen in a dark apron, a smear of flour on his wrist. He stopped when he saw her. The navy dress, the simple gold hoop earrings, the way she seemed to carry light with her. You actually cooked, she teased. I actually cooked, he said, lifting a lid to let the perfume of time into the room. She leaned on the table, reading the place cards. Emma, Ethan, 2 more names left turned down. Is it a double date I don't know about? He exhaled. Not a date. More like witnesses to a goodbye. If that's too much, say the word. Emma's eyes searched his. You're allowed to end things on your terms, she said. I'll be here, but please don't let them steal our night. Deal. They ate the first bites standing. He carved her a wing, salted it with his fingers, and watched her close her eyes at the taste. He poured her a glass of seltzer with lime because he remembered she had an early morning with her Saturday mentoring group. The easy talk found them again. Childhood stories, the worst road trip sandwiches, the first book that made them cry. He told her about standing in the back of his first gala as a kid in a borrowed suit, counting the chandeliers to slow his breathing. She told him about learning to drive in a church parking lot, her father's calm voice saying, "You're doing fine," even when she wasn't. A soft knock. Jack stuck his head in. Your guests are here. Ethan looked at Emma. She nodded. He set his towel down. Caroline entered first, winter fur draped over one shoulder like a command. Marcus came behind in a suit that tried a little too hard. They stopped, thrown by the sight of Ethan at a stove and not at the head of a boardroom table. You weren't kidding, Caroline said, chin up, eyes sweeping the room. Intimate. Good to see you both, Ethan said evenly. There's a coat rack. Caroline didn't move toward it. She moved toward Emma. We met at the gala. You volunteer, right? I do, Emma said, pleasant but not pliant. And I'm a guest. Of course, Caroline murmured, the of course doing all the work. She turned back to Ethan. So what is this? A tasting menu? A lecture? A test? It's dinner, Ethan said. He pulled a second skillet of cornbread from the oven, set it on a trivet, and handed Emma the butter. Sit, eat, or don't. But we're not performing. Marcus took a seat. Hunger is less proud than pride. Caroline sat like a queen in exile. They ate. The room was full of knife-to-plate sounds and tiny surprises. How good something simple can taste when someone cares. Caroline broke quickly. Fine, she said, tearing off a piece of cornbread. This is incredible. Happy? Hungry people being fed makes me happy, Ethan said. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's dinner. Caroline's smile slid. Is that a dig? It's a sentence, Emma said softly. Sometimes they just end. Caroline angled at her. And sometimes they get rewritten. Ethan set his fork down. That's why you're here. To hear how this story ends. With clarity. Marcus leaned back, watching, calculating which current to swim with. Caroline tilted her head, waiting for a performance she could interrupt, a spotlight she could hijack. Ethan didn't raise his voice. He didn't summon waiters or speeches or gold foil anything. He looked at Caroline, then at Emma, then at the table he'd laid himself. I spent too long letting other people narrate me, he said. Tonight, I'm choosing my own verbs. Caroline smirked. And your audience? Accidental, he said. He reached under his chair and pulled out 2 envelopes, not embossed, not crested, just white, each with a name in his blocky hand. He placed one by Caroline's plate, one by Marcus's. Read them after dessert. Caroline's fingers hovered. What is it? Closure, Ethan said. He turned back to the stove, lifted a small pot, and ladled warm blackberry compote over bowls of vanilla ice cream like midnight over snow. Emma's spoon paused in the air. Closure can feel like a door, she said quietly, but the best ones feel like a window. Ethan met her eyes and smiled. Exactly. Caroline slid a nail under the flap anyway. Marcus's hand shot out, catching her wrist. He said after dessert. She stared at Ethan, defiance and curiosity doing battle. In the kitchen, a timer chimed. In the hallway, footsteps approached. Jack checked his watch and opened the door wider. Ethan, he called. You've got one more guest asking if she can come in. Ethan frowned. Who? Jack's eyes flicked to Emma, then back. Someone who chose the hard way. Says she just wants to say thank you. The room held its breath as the handle turned. The handle turned. Every fork in the room seemed to stop in midair. Lauren stood in the doorway in clean thrift store slacks and a pale blue polo, hair pulled back, palms open like she was afraid to spook the moment. She looked healthier than the night in the service hall, still thinner than before, but steady. Behind her, Jack hovered, ready to escort her out if anyone flinched. I asked if I could come in for 1 minute, Lauren said, voice small but clear. I'm not here to make a scene. Caroline let out a soft laugh. Too late. Emma stepped up beside Ethan before he could answer. You can have a minute, she said gently. Take a breath. Lauren nodded, eyes flicking gratefully to Emma. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a velvet box, the kind that makes a room hold its breath. She didn't open it. She set it on the table by the butter dish. I brought this back, she said, looking at Ethan. I don't want anything that came from the worst part of me. Ethan didn't touch the box. You don't owe me money or jewelry. I owe you respect, she said. I started that program we talked about, the one with the counselor who wears the little sun earrings. I'm in housekeeping now. Training, at least. Next month, classes. I wanted to say thank you for not blasting my name when you could have. You could have made me a headline. You didn't. The room fell into a quiet that felt like fresh snow. Caroline shifted, impatient. Marcus stared at his water glass like it held secrets. Emma's voice softened. How's it going? Day to day? Lauren gave a half smile. 1 day at a time. Early buses. Pack my lunch. I sleep. I answer my sponsor. I try not to edit my own honesty. She glanced at Caroline, then back to Ethan. And I'm learning the difference between love and attention. Caroline arched an eyebrow. Is this the part where we all clap? Caroline, Ethan said, not unkindly. Lauren took a breath, shoulders dropping. I won't keep you. I just wanted to close a door the right way. I'm sorry for what I did to you, Ethan. I'm sorry for the person I was with you. I hope you and... She looked at Emma, a question in her eyes. Emma supplied. You and Emma build something you don't have to recover from. She backed toward the exit. That's all. Wait, Ethan said. He stepped to the counter, scooped warm blackberry compote over a small bowl of ice cream, and handed it to her with a spoon. For the road. Lauren blinked hard. Thank you. She lifted the spoon in a tiny salute, then slipped out as quietly as she'd come. The door clicked shut. The room exhaled. Caroline broke it. So we're hosting redemption arcs now? Cute. Sometimes people choose the hard way, Emma said. It deserves room. Ethan set the ladle down. Speaking of room, he said, sliding the 2 white envelopes back in front of Caroline and Marcus. I meant what I said. Read these after dessert. Caroline slid a nail under the flap anyway. Marcus put a hand over his. He asked us not to. Caroline yanked hers free, eyes flashing. Since when do you play hall monitor? Since I'm tired of watching you run straight into walls, he muttered. Ethan didn't try to stop her. He sat, lifted his own spoon, and took one calm bite of ice cream like he had all night to finish it. Emma followed his pace. The quiet stretched, not awkward so much as intentional. Caroline unfolded the page. It was 2 letters, actually. The first was short, typed, and precise. Caroline, as of tonight, you are formally trespassed from all Hale Properties holdings and events. Any attempt to enter will be referred to security and, if necessary, law enforcement. This is not punishment. It's a boundary. If you ever choose to pursue the work of change, enclosed are 3 programs that help adults rebuild with dignity. I wish you well on that road. Ethan Hale. Under it, a second sheet listed 3 organizations in bold. A financial literacy course that met on Tuesdays at the downtown library, a workforce training center with paid apprenticeships, and a counseling clinic with sliding scale fees. At the bottom, a 4th line. A donation has been made to Harbor House Women's Shelter in your name. Color rose in Caroline's face. You donated in my name? That's what, condescending? It's me choosing what energy I put into the world, Ethan said. That's all. Emma watched Caroline's fingers whiten on the paper, then tilted her own spoon toward Marcus. Yours says the same. Marcus opened his envelope slowly. He read in silence, jaw tight. It wasn't the same. His letter was shorter still. Marcus. Decision time. You don't owe me anything, and I don't owe you proximity. If you want a lane that isn't all flex and smoke, Jack can get you in front of the apprenticeship director at Harbor Fleet on Monday at 9 a.m. If not, no hard feelings. Just no access, no back doors, no favors, so please don't text my staff. EH, a business card was paper-clipped to the corner. On the back, in ink, ask for Yolanda. She doesn't tolerate games. Marcus stared at the card like it might burn a hole through his palm. You set this up? I set up a meeting, Ethan said. You'll have to do the showing up. Caroline let out a brittle laugh. Wow. He fires you and offers you a starter pack. That's rich. Marcus pushed his chair back, metal squealing over wood. You know what's rich, he said quietly. You thinking the only way to be somebody is to sit next to rooms like this and sneer. Caroline stood too, chin high. Spare me the TED Talk. Ethan stayed seated, voice even. You don't have to like me, Caroline. You don't have to like her, he added, nodding toward Emma. But you will respect our space. Tonight is the last night your choices spill into my table. Caroline folded the letter in half, then in half again, as if making it disappear could make it untrue. You think you can cut me out with a piece of paper? It isn't the paper, Emma said. It's the door behind it. Caroline's laugh caught in her throat. She turned toward the exit, then looked back at the velvet box by the butter dish, the one Lauren had left. For a flicker, jealousy and something like longing warred in her eyes. She reached for her clutch instead. At the doorway, she paused, looked at Ethan like she was memorizing the room, and then at Emma, measuring something softer she didn't know how to name. Enjoy your casseroles and your causes, she said, and walked out. The door swung shut. The room felt bigger. Marcus remained, the card sweating in his hand. He glanced at the skillet, then at Ethan. Yolanda at 9? Yolanda at 9, Ethan said. Don't be late. Marcus nodded, swallowed, and left without another word. Silence floated down like a clean tablecloth. Emma scooted her chair closer until her knee brushed Ethan's. You okay? He let out a laugh that sounded a little like relief. For the first time in a long time, he reached for the velvet box. He didn't open it. He set it gently on the counter and washed his hands, soap slipping through his fingers in ribbons. Ready for one more surprise? He asked, drying off. Emma smiled. Only if it's not another envelope. It's not, he said, moving to the lights. It's a view. He dimmed the chandelier and hit a switch. The far wall hummed, shades rising to reveal the bay at night. Ferries cutting slow white lines across black water. The bridge lit up like a necklace. Emma drew in a breath. The room fell into that hush that only comes when a new chapter is about to write itself. And then her phone buzzed on the table. One word from an unknown number that made her throat go tight. Emma's phone buzzed again. Just one word on the lock screen. Please. Her stomach dipped. She turned the screen so Ethan could see. He read the text, then her eyes. Ask who it is, he said softly. Emma typed, Who's this? A bubble appeared, then 3 dots, then a reply. Caroline. I'm outside. I don't know where to go. Emma blew out a breath. If I meet her, it's on my terms, she said. Boundaries. Then we set them, Ethan answered. He tapped his watch, and a minute later Jack leaned into the doorway. Emma explained in a low voice. Jack nodded and slipped to the front steps. Outside, the bay wind had picked up, bringing that thin salt chill that sneaks into your sleeves. Caroline stood under the awning, arms wrapped around herself, mascara a faint bruise beneath her eyes. The bravado from an hour ago was gone. I'm not here to beg him, she told Emma, chin wobbling. I burned every bridge. Mark's gone. I can't go back to my roommate. I don't have anywhere tonight. Emma kept a shoulder's width of air between them. I won't open a door in there for you, she said, nodding toward the dining room. That season is over, but no one should be unsafe out here. Caroline's laugh came out broken. I thought the letter was a stunt. It wasn't. It was a line, Emma said. And it stays. She glanced at Ethan, who had come to the threshold with 2 paper cups. He handed one to Caroline. It's just tea, he said. You're not the enemy, Caroline. You're also not my project. Caroline stared at the cup. I don't deserve your kindness. Kindness is about me, Ethan said, not you. For a long beat, only the wind spoke. Cars whispered past on the boulevard. A ferry moaned out on the black water. Emma took a breath. Harbor House has beds tonight, she said. They'll ask for your name and a little paperwork. They'll give you a lockbox, a shower, and a plan in the morning. You can say no. But it's a better choice than the street or another bad man with a nice car. Caroline's eyes filled. I don't have bus fare. I'll drive you, Emma said. But hear me, this isn't a back door into Ethan's life. This is you choosing yourself. Caroline nodded, small and shaky. Okay. Jack pulled the SUV around. Caroline slid into the back seat, folding in on herself. Emma climbed in beside her. Ethan took the passenger seat. They rode through the city in a quiet that felt like truce. Neon from a late-night taqueria smeared across the window, then the soft glow of a 24-hour pharmacy, then dark blocks of sleeping bungalows. Halfway there, Caroline spoke into the dim. My dad lost our house when I was in 10th grade, she said. Cards, bets, whatever got him out of himself. My mom worked doubles. I figured out fast that pretty and useful got doors open quicker than waiting my turn. She swallowed. I don't know how to stop performing long enough to be real. Emma looked at her. Really looked. Start small, she said. Tell the truth even when it makes you look worse. Ask for help without promising you'll be perfect. And when you mess up, don't double down. Just repair. Caroline huffed a laugh through her nose. Repair. Yeah. Jack turned into a modest brick building with a blue sign. Harbor House Women's Shelter. A porch light cast a circle on the steps. Inside, a woman with box braids and a clipboard watched through the glass. Ethan stepped out first and opened Caroline's door. You've got this, he said. We're not walking in with you. Caroline nodded. I know. She gripped the cup, then pressed it back into Emma's hands like a relay baton. Thank you, she whispered, for not making me crawl. Emma squeezed her fingers once. Go in. Let them help. Caroline squared her shoulders and climbed the steps. The door opened. The woman with the clipboard, Maya, her name tag read, offered a steady smile and guided her inside. The door closed on the warm light and the murmurs of intake questions. Back in the SUV, no one spoke for a block. Finally, Ethan reached over the console and found Emma's hand. You didn't fix her, he said. You offered a fork in the road. Emma nodded. I need you to know why I answered, she said. I won't get triangulated into your past. I know, he said. And for the record, that was my favorite thing you've done all week. More than the cobbler? Barely. He grinned, and something unclenched in her chest. The city slid by, orange streetlights blinking like a metronome. When they walked back into the dining room, the air was still honeyed with cinnamon. The velvet ring box Lorne had returned sat where they left it, small and dark against the marble. Ethan picked it up and turned it over in his palm, the ghost of old plans heavy as lead. I should put this in the safe, he said. Or, Emma said, we could walk it to the water and skip it like a stone. He laughed. Tempting. He set it on a shelf, then wiped the counter. Motion, order, a small ritual against the chaos of other people's lives. Emma watched him, the way his steadiness didn't erase his tenderness, just held it. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She frowned, thumb hovering, then opened the text. Saw you pull up at Harbor House? Good choice. Also, Yolanda says 8:45 beats 9. Tell Marcus early birds get the apprenticeship. Emma blinked. Who? Ethan leaned over. A second text arrived, this one with a wink emoji. J. Jack. Emma smiled. Looks like someone's stacking the deck in favor of better men. Ethan exhaled, a quiet laugh. Let's hope he shows. They stood together at the window, the bridge throwing its jeweled curve across the dark. Down on the boulevard, a bus hissed, doors opening into light. Tomorrow? Ethan said. Brunch at that diner you love. Then a drive. There's a place I want to show you. A view? Emma teased. A question, he said, gaze fixed on the bay. Emma's heart tripped, hope sparking like a struck match. And then from the hall came a soft knock, 3 short taps. Not Jack's rhythm, not staff. Emma and Ethan exchanged a look. Who would be here this late? She whispered. The knock came again, a little firmer this time. Ethan crossed the room, hand hovering over the knob, and opened the door to find 3 soft knocks. Not Jack's rhythm, not staff. Ethan opened the door to find Marcus on the landing with a backpack slung over one shoulder and a thrift store tie wrinkled in his fist. Hey, he said, breath fogging in the bay breeze. I know it's late, I couldn't sleep. My brain's doing cartwheels. Emma smiled and stepped aside. Come in before the wind convinces you to quit. Marcus glanced around the warm kitchen like it was a different planet. Harbor House texted me to be there at 8:45, he said. That's early, right? Early? That's perfect, Emma said, thinking of Jack's winky text. Yolanda likes people who show up before the coffee's ready. Marcus held up the tie. I YouTubed how to tie a tie and got roasted in the comments. Also, do mechanics wear ties? Ethan laughed and took the fabric. No ties near belts and spinning things, but you can wear it now and lose it later. He looped the tie with easy hands and settled it under Marcus's collar. How's your head? Loud, Marcus admitted. Like, what if they clock the record and I'm just the nice project for a day? What if I mess up and that's my whole shot? Ethan leaned on the island. You won't be perfect. No one is. What they're watching for is if you listen, if you care, if you show up again tomorrow. Emma slid a plate across the counter. Leftover peach cobbler, warmed, with a scoop of ice cream sliding into a sweet glacier. Sugar is medicinal, she said. Doctor's orders. Marcus grinned and took a bite. His shoulders unhitched half an inch. Tastes like you got this. Pretty much, Emma said. They set alarms and made a plan. Ethan driving, Emma bringing coffee, Marcus promising to be on the curb at 8:15 because early suddenly felt like oxygen. Morning broke clean and gold. The bridge threw light across the water like someone had pulled a string of coins taut over the bay. They rolled down International Boulevard and turned into the lot of a low, cinder-block shop with a hand-painted sign, Yolanda's Auto and Electric. A woman in navy coveralls stood in the doorway, curly gray under a ball cap, assessing like a coach. You Marcus? She called. Yes, ma'am, Marcus said, straightening. Thank you for having me. She said, already turning. Rule 1. Ma'am makes me feel like my grandmother. It's Yolanda. Rule 2. Phones stay pocketed. Rule 3. Grab a broom before you grab a wrench. You learn more sweeping than talking. Yes, Yolanda, he corrected, smiling despite the nerves. Jack wandered out from under a lifted Civic, grease on his forearm, safety glasses perched in his hair. Look who beat me here, he said, bumping Marcus's shoulder. He shot Ethan a quick look. He showed and got a small nod back. The next 2 hours were a blur of honest work. Marcus swept, watched, fetched sockets he didn't know existed, learned the difference between a serpentine belt and a prayer. He asked smart questions, listened when Yolanda answered, and when a battery tester slipped from his hand, he owned it, apologized, and kept moving. At 10:30, Yolanda killed the compressor and leaned on a fender. "We don't do pity hires," she said, voice carrying over the shop noise. "We do apprenticeships. You come on 3 mornings a week to start. You show me you can be trusted around 1,200 pounds of someone's freedom. I'll show you how to make a living. You in?" Marcus blinked. "I'm in." "Good," Yolanda said, already turning to bark at Jack about a torque spec. Outside in the mild sun, Marcus sat on the curb and exhaled like he'd been underwater for years. Emma handed him a paper bag with a breakfast burrito still warm, salsa tucked inside. He looked at Ethan, eyes bright. "I didn't know the world could change," he said. "It doesn't," Ethan said. "You do." Then the world notices. They dropped Marcus at the youth center so he could brag properly to the coordinator who'd vouched for him, then headed to Emma's favorite diner in West Oakland, the one with cracked leather booths and a framed A's jersey over the register. The waitress called Emma Han and slid them a plate of hash browns crispy enough to shatter. "Brunch victory lap," Emma said, tapping her mug against Ethan's. "And you said a drive?" He smiled, that private curve that meant he'd been planning. "North, windows down. Trust me." They crossed the bridge, the skyline shrinking in the mirror, then climbed through cypress and fog to the Marin headlands. The ocean unfurled like pewter, whales of cloud rolling low. He parked above a bluff where wildflowers clung to wind-shoved dirt and the old concrete bunkers kept their silent watch over the mouth of the bay. They walked to the railing, gulls stitching white arcs on the air. Emma zipped her jacket and tucked her hair behind an ear. Ethan looked out at the water, then at her, then back, as if asking the waves for courage. "I used to come here when everything felt loud," he said. "The night after, all of it. I sat on this rail and told myself I'd rather be alone than lied to." Emma's hand found his sleeve. He covered it with his own. "I said last night I had a question," he went on, voice low. "It's not the one in the velvet box. That one can wait until your brother passes his probationary period and I learn Yolanda-approved torque specs." Emma laughed, a small, breathy sound that blew white in the chill. "I want to build a life with you on purpose," he said. "Not just dinners and rescue missions. I want you in my mornings and my mess. Would you move in with me? Not to fix anything. To choose this. To choose us." The wind lifted, tasting of salt and eucalyptus. Emma stared at him, the simplicity of the words settling over deeper places than she expected. She opened her mouth, then a voice behind them, tentative and too familiar, slipped through the fog. "Ethan!" They turned. A woman stood by the path, hair pulled back, hotel housekeeping blues under a thrifted coat. Her hands were bare in the cold. Lauren's text about the ring box flashed in Emma's mind, the old chapter they'd kept closed on a shelf. The woman swallowed hard. "It's me," she said, voice shaking. "Lila." Emma felt Ethan go very still beside her. The wind pressed against their backs, and the question he'd asked hung between them, fragile as a gull's feather, waiting. For a long beat, none of them moved. Wind pushed the fog sideways like a slow curtain. Ethan's jaw flexed. Emma felt the tension through his sleeve. Lila stepped closer, hands visible, voice small. I'm not here to start anything, she said. I saw you from the bus stop. I get off down in Sausalito for my shift. I I just needed to say I'm sorry for everything. Emma glanced at Ethan. His face had gone neutral, the mask he wears when the pain's fresh again. You don't owe me your time, Lila rushed on. But I owed you this. What I did. I was selfish and cruel. I thought I was gaming a system that owed me, and the system turned out to be an actual person. Her throat worked. You. She reached into her coat and pulled out a tiny velvet box, scuffed at the corners. I couldn't pawn it, she said, pressing it forward like a confession. I tried, twice. Both times I got to the door and couldn't do it. I kept it on a chain like penance. It's yours. Ethan didn't touch it. Emma took the box gently and held it between both palms. Inside lay a simple diamond that once meant a promise and now felt like a ghost. What happened after? Emma asked, voice even. Not for gossip, just to understand where to put this moment. Lila gave a broken laugh. Michael happened. He loved the idea of me until the bills showed up. When the headlines died down, so did his interest. I lost my job at the spa. Couldn't pay rent. I moved home to Santa Rosa, cleaned motel rooms, got sober, got a therapist who doesn't laugh at the parts I'm ashamed of. She lifted her eyes to Ethan. It doesn't undo it. I need you to know I'm not that girl anymore. Silence. Waves hit the rocks and flung up white. A gull barked like a heckler. I believe you're trying, Ethan said at last, and I'm glad you're safe. He swallowed. I also can't invite you back into my life. That door, it has to stay shut. Lila nodded, eyes shining. I didn't come to ask for that, she said quickly. I came to lay this down and leave you in peace. She looked at Emma. I'm sorry for the mess I made that you had to help clean. Emma surprised herself by stepping closer. Healing's messy, she said softly, but it's also possible. Lila smiled, small and real. I work nights at the Seacliff Galleria now, she added, almost apologetic. Housekeeping. If you ever need me to sign anything for court or whatever, I'll do it. I'm not running from the past anymore. We're good, Ethan said. Take care of yourself, Lila. She tucked her hands into her sleeves against the chill. You too. Then she turned and walked back along the path, disappearing into the fog like a lesson you finally learned. They stood at the rail for a while, breathing salt and eucalyptus, letting the adrenaline ebb. Emma opened the little box again, then closed it with a soft click and slipped it into her jacket pocket. You can sell it, Ethan said, a wry half-smile twitching. Buy Marcus a torque wrench. Emma bumped his shoulder. We'll ask Yolanda which one. He exhaled, and some of the old weight left with the air. About what I asked, he said, turning to face her fully. Moving in? Emma's heart thudded once, then steadied. I heard you. I want to do this right, he said. That means no half-truths. There's something I haven't told you, not because I don't trust you, but because I didn't trust anyone for a long time. His eyes held hers. Before you answer, let me show you all of me. Tonight. Emma held his gaze, the honesty in it undoing all her practiced caution. Show me, she said. He nodded, relief loosening his shoulders. Dress up, he added, a hint of mischief warming his voice. Nothing wild, just something that makes you feel like your favorite version of you. I'll pick you up at 7. Is this where you say, trust me, and I remind you I've heard that line in movies that end badly? She teased. This one ends differently, he said, thumb brushing her knuckles. I promise. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jack. Marcus nailed it. Yolanda's bringing him on 3 mornings a week. Also, you free tonight? Might crash your date to high-five you both. Emma grinned and typed back, later, big night, then slid the phone away. They walked back to the car, fingers laced, fog thinning to show the bridge flashing copper in a slice of sun. Down the hill, a commuter bus hissed to a stop. Doors wheezing open for a woman in a thrifted coat on her way to turn down beds in a hotel that smelled like lemons. At the curb, Ethan squeezed Emma's hand. 7, he said. 7, she echoed. Neither of them saw the notification lighting up Caroline's screen across town. A tagged post, a location pin, a photo of a private dining room being set for a special event at the Seacliff Galleria, nor the brief, tight smile she gave the glass before she hit share. At 6:59, Emma stood by the window of her little studio, palms damp, cardigan smoothed for the 3rd time. At 7 sharp, a low hum rolled up the block, then headlights washed across the glass. A sleek black SUV eased to the curb, followed by 2 more. Neighbors parted their blinds. Someone's kid pointed from a stoop. The rear door opened, and Ethan stepped out in a midnight suit that fit like it had been built on him. He looked up, found her in the window, and smiled, the warm, unguarded one she knew. "Ready?" he asked when she came down. "Apparently," she said, eyes flicking to the motorcade. "In case you're wondering," he added, "this is less about drama and more about context. Tonight, I stop hiding." The ride into the city felt like moving through a movie she hadn't auditioned for. Coastline sliding by, the bridge a string of copper in the dusk. Then the Seacliff Galleria rising in glass and light above the water. Valet sprinted. A manager in a dark blazer opened Emma's door with a slight bow. "Welcome back, sir," he said to Ethan. "Private room is set." They swept through a lobby of marble and soft piano. Staff nodded as if to someone they knew well. In a corridor lined with photos of old San Francisco, a sign read, "Reserved." Inside, candles glowed. A small string trio tuned quietly. And a handful of people stood waiting. Jack, Yolanda in a jumpsuit that meant business. Marcus in a collared shirt trying to look like he wasn't about to explode with news. Jack grabbed Ethan in a quick hug, then squeezed Emma's shoulders. "About time," he whispered. Before she could ask anything, a familiar laugh, bright, brittle, cut in from the doorway. Caroline. Hair blown out, red dress meant to be seen, phone clutched like a scepter. She hadn't been invited. "Thought I'd swing by," she sang, eyes raking Ethan, then the room. "Wouldn't miss the spectacle." A man stepped from behind her. Mark, the guy with the flashy car months back. He didn't strut tonight. He walked to Ethan, head tipped respectfully. "Evening, boss," he said. Caroline blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" Mark's voice stayed even. "I drive for him. I always have." The room stilled. Caroline's smile cracked. "You let me believe you were—" She turned to Ethan, color rising. "So you were rich this whole time and played poor for fun?" Ethan's answer was simple. "I was protecting myself. I lost the last time I led with money. I wanted to meet someone who saw me, not my balance sheet." He glanced at Emma. "And I did." He took Emma's hand and led her toward the center of the room. "I own pieces of a few things," he said, speaking to her, not the gawkers. "Logistics, some hospitality, this property. After the wedding," he said carefully, "I walked away from all of it for a while. I needed a life that didn't revolve around being needed for what I have." Emma studied him. Not the suit, not the setting, the steadiness. "You could have told me," she said softly. "I should have. Tonight is me telling you everything." A clatter at the back made everyone turn. A housekeeper in a gray apron had come in with a mop and a yellow caution sign. Her eyes lifted and widened. Lila. The little breath she took carried across the room. She set the mop down, mouthed, "I'm sorry to no one and everyone," then backed out, disappearing into the service hall like a tide pulled by the moon. Emma exhaled. Ethan squeezed her fingers. "Past," he said gently. "Not our present." Caroline's laugh returned, nervous and mean. "Cute," she said. "Now do the part where you apologize for wasting my time." Yolanda stepped forward, voice level. "Respect the room or respect the exit, sweetheart." Ethan didn't look at Caroline. He looked at Emma and went to one knee. Gasps fluttered. The trio's bow hands froze mid-air. "Emma," he said, his voice steady in a way that felt like a promise in itself. "I fell for the woman who showed up with takeout when the world felt loud. For the one who told a 17-year-old his worth didn't depend on anyone's label. For the friend who stood in the gap when I couldn't stand at all. I don't want a performance. I want a partner. Will you marry me?" He opened a small box. The ring wasn't ostentatious. It was classic and clean. A diamond catching the candlelight. The setting shaped like something meant to be worn every day. Emma's eyes blurred, but her voice found itself. "Yes," she said, a whisper first, then stronger. "Yes." Applause cracked and rolled. Marcus whooped loud enough to startle a server. Jack wiped his eyes and pretended it was allergies. Yolanda nodded like a foreman approving a perfect weld. Caroline's chair screeched back. "No," she snapped, high and sharp. "This is ridiculous. He was with me first." "He was never yours," Emma said. Not cruel, just true. Caroline reached for a centerpiece, fingers grazing glass. 2 security guards were already there, gentle but immovable. "Ma'am," one said, "let's step outside." She twisted, then sagged, fury folding into something tired. "You'll regret this," she shot over her shoulder as they escorted her through the doors. No one answered. Ethan slid the ring onto Emma's finger, stood, and pulled her into a hug that felt like a blueprint for a life. In his shoulder, she felt home. Not a place, but a person. Toasts followed, short, sincere. Jack raised his glass. "To choosing the right hard thing." Yolanda lifted hers. "To boundaries and beginnings." Marcus, voice cracking. "To people who see you when you don't see yourself." Later, when the room had thinned and the trio had packed away their instruments, Ethan and Emma stepped onto the balcony overlooking the bay. The wind off the water was cold enough to make them stand closer. "So," Emma said, glancing at the diamond, throwing pinpricks on her palm. "What's tomorrow?" Ethan smiled into the dark. "Coffee at Ria's, then paperwork with Marcus's apprenticeship, then calling my mother to tell her I finally did something that makes sense." "And tonight?" she asked. He kissed her forehead. "Tonight, we breathe."